Good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CRU Pre-LME Week webinar. My name is Paul Williams, the head of aluminium, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. So, what's in store for the LME markets in 2023? Well, it's certainly been a very turbulent year this year for metal markets. We've had, of course, the war in Ukraine, the energy crisis, especially in Europe, rampant inflation, and this has all been impacting supply and demand over the last 12 months. So what's in store, and are we facing another year of turbulence and a year of declining prices? Our legal notice, and let me introduce our team of experts today to answer and address these questions. So we have experts across the metals covering aluminium, copper, nickel, zinc and lead, as well as our head of economics to set the economic scene for you. So Alex Tuckett will be up first to discuss that economic outlook, followed by Greg Whitbecker on aluminium. Rob Edwards will discuss copper. Nikhil Shah will discuss nickel. Craig Lang will give the zinc view, and Neil Hawkes will provide the view on the lead market. You can also ask and write your questions in for the Q&A at the end of the presentations via the function. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Alex to give the economic outlook. Alex.
Thanks very much, Paul. So the world economy at the moment is really facing three very big challenges. The first of those is an energy crisis, and that's most acute in Europe. The fact that Russia has almost completely stopped the flow of pipeline gas now to Europe has sent gas prices there spiraling. And that's also had knock-on effects because European demand for LNG has also pushed up prices in Asia and other places. So we can already see that having a very severe effect on energy-intensive sectors in Europe, and that will have ripple effects to the rest of the industrial base as well as hitting household demand. The second of those challenges, which is closely related, is very high levels of inflation, definitely in Western economies and in many emerging markets, so it's not universal. Different picture in East Asia. Big part of that has been energy, but there are also other factors, including the supply chain crisis we saw in 2021, still having effects, and also very strong demand from very strong monetary and fiscal stimulus coming out of COVID, particularly in the US. So the really big threat here is both directly the direct effects of inflation in suppressing consumer demand, but also the monetary policy response, where central banks, if they're going to bring inflation down, really have to clamp down on domestic demand, and we see that happening quite clearly in the US with very sharp rises in the Fed funds rate. And then finally, the final challenge we have is China, where China has some quite different problems, much more domestically focused problems. First of all, a property market which has been slowing for some time and is in a very depressed state, accounts for a lot of demand into China's economy. And then also the zero COVID policy and how China will exit from that. That's really held back its growth this year with repeated sort of lockdowns, keeping consumer demand quite depressed. So overall, we see these factors meaning that world growth will slow very sharply in 2023. It's already slowed in 22 relative to 21. We see recessions in both the US, a fairly mild recession in the first half of 23, a deeper recession in Europe, which we believe has started already. China, we do think will see better growth next year, but there are risks there. And a warning sign this week was that they delayed the publication of Q3 GDP data, which may not be a great sign. The industrial sector will also slow quite significantly, obviously quite exposed to energy. So overall, a rather downbeat outlook for the world economy in 2023.